we'll go on to, so for this morning, this is the last panel presentation, so I'd like to invite Louise Watts, who's our panel convener of D2.
Okay, well, good morning. I'm Louise Watts and I'm the convener of the D2 panel for Information Systems and Telecommunications, and this year the study committee has seen some interesting developments using AI technology for asset management, mainly around inspections of towers, ongoing transition to IP technology, and in Australia especially we're seeing the impact that the growth of green energy and renewables is having on the industry, and in particular to telco. So today I'm here just to summarise these along with our local and global activities and present to you some of the trends that we're seeing across the panel. So the purpose of Study Committee D2 is to develop, facilitate collaboration and disseminate knowledge within the power industry in the areas of information systems, telecommunications and cybersecurity. Information systems covers the systems that are supporting the electrical network, so energy management systems, smart meters, IoT, big data and artificial intelligence. In telecommunications, there's a current focus on supporting reliable and agile solutions, the exchange of information and data systems operability. And in cybersecurity, we consider the governance, the policies, the architectures and secure design and implementation. And the topic of cybersecurity has been a growing area for D2, and as Alex mentioned, our name will be changing from next year to include cybersecurity, and that really acknowledges that area of study and its importance across the electrical industry as well. So this year, Study Committee D2 was one of the many panels involved in the Cairns International Symposium, and we took the opportunity to hold our regular study committee meeting during the symposium to discuss our strategy, receive updates from our working groups and other general business. And it was great to see a number of people make the effort to come to Australia to attend. 22 papers were presented at the symposium, and from all the papers received there were three very distinct topics: digital information and artificial intelligence in asset management. And that included data analysis and information system approaches to condition monitoring, network models and use cases for remote asset monitoring. Network infrastructure and telecommunications, covering topics around implementing packet switch technologies using circuit emulation services and time synchronization techniques. Resilient communication networks were considered as part of that, and an interesting part of that was included automation of troubleshooting tasks during abnormal communication events, and work in determining network topologies that can withstand disasters. And finally, cybersecurity, covering strengthening the resilience of the network, not just through technology, but also balancing with human resources, processes, procedures and standards. Security operations centres were also discussed, and they presented different methods of providing monitoring and threat detection to power utilities. D2 presented two very well received tutorials at the symposium. The first topic was time in communication networks, and that presented the joint B5D2 technical brochure that was released in 2022. And the brochure's aim was to provide a reference document for time sources and time distribution in protection, automation and control systems, and that included recommendations and best practices. The second tutorial was around enabling teleprotection over packet switch networks. This was presented by three of our Australian panel members, Brenton, James and Santosh, and I thank them for their efforts in preparing that tutorial. And they presented an overview of packet-based networks, in particular focusing towards the electrical industry. They shared their experience in migrations to these networks and some use cases. In 2023, Study Committee D2 released one technical brochure on the impact that regulations and constraints on sensitive data distribution and location of data storage have on electrical power utilities. And we're also in the early stages of proposing 3 new working groups in the areas of cybersecurity and supply chains, digital certificate management schemes, and network maintenance and control of packet and network services. As for active working groups, in 2023 we had 14 active working groups, many due for completion over the 24-25 period. And you can see from the highlighted words that the working groups cover the 3 focus areas that I discussed before, from asset management and monitoring, wireless communications, IoT, digital twins and cybersecurity, among others. Locally, the Australian and New Zealand D2 panel has 27 regular members and 5 observers. Mainly the observers are there as succession planning. And the photo there is from this year's panel meeting, which was our first in-person meeting since 2019, so it was really great to see everyone in person again. I really want to see an increase in membership, especially in the areas of information systems and cybersecurity, so that we can start to diversify and cover those additional focus areas. And that may mean that we need additional members from the same businesses as well, and I have been speaking to the panel members around that, because we do have quite heavily involved telecommunications experts, but not so much from information systems and cybersecurity. So just looking at local activities and trends, in March this year the panel held a roundtable on 5G technologies and IoT. We had Telstra representatives join us to discuss their view on the future of 5G technologies and applications. And that including having the capability, because it's a 5G network, to provide network slicing, SLAs, and also quality of service over the network. Ahmed Tawfiq from Origin Energy discussed IoT development and projects, and they were finding that at Origin many areas of the business were each working on separate IoT projects, and so they set out to form a consolidated approach to IoT across the business. Some of the use cases were testing out SCADA over an MQTT protocol, which is an IoT protocol, testing dispatch alarms and operational data, and also capturing video images to help with alerting and inspection. And part of that was also developing an architecture to suit all business IoT requirements. And finally, Mew and Chen from SA Power Networks presented on testing applications of 5G technologies, and that included several use cases around remote asset inspections using robots for substation inspections and drones for low ground risk areas. Our panel meeting for 2023 was held at the CAN Symposium and aligned to the D2 paper presentations. Data networks resilience and growth was again a trend for D2, as electrical power utilities continued their transition from IP to IP from TDM. And we're seeing an increase now in testing of teleprotection services over IP, and also a focus on synchronisation and timing over these networks. The supply chain issues caused by COVID-19 are mostly resolved, but we are finding that we're now having skill shortages in telecommunications and cybersecurity that are becoming real problems, especially with the ageing workforce. Wireless networks, we continue to see the decommissioning of 3G networks to 4G. Many of these replacements will be due for completion mid-2024 when the 3G networks are scheduled to be shut down, though some are still having issues with changes in coverage. We're seeing some IoT applications and proof of concepts, but it's probably quite minimal than we might have expected a few years ago. In cybersecurity, we're seeing a big shift in focus to operational technology in Australia, with the introduction of government regulations and increased threats to critical infrastructure. Many businesses are now developing and improving on their cybersecurity monitoring and building cybersecurity operations centre functionality. We're seeing work on encryption, and we're working through the challenges of vulnerability management in OT environments, especially around how to secure legacy systems. And to do this, of course, we need a big uplift in cybersecurity staff, which is hard to find. This year there does seem to be an unusual amount of native birds roosting in towers. It came across in multiple presentations. So it's making asset management a bit of a problem, and they're usually having to wait for those eggs to hatch. And finally, panel members presented on their ongoing asset replacements and the challenge of maintaining these with the existing workforce while there is unprecedented growth as well, mostly due to renewables. So as we go into 2024, we will meet for an online roundtable in March, most likely around incident response and cybersecurity, followed by our panel meeting in July to be ready for our Paris session in August next year. So I look forward to presenting to you on those next year. Thank you.